Welcome to this third module of getting started with React Redux. As earlier I promised you that this course will be a beginner course and I will be looking on things that are there in React and we will be learning more and doing more. So today in this module we are going to talk about container component. In the previous video, we talked about presentational component, where we said that presentational component is actually stateless, and it is actually majorly the child of the component. It's majorly where you do all your HTML, the all HTML tags goes in. What about a container component? Let's take some time and let's have this scenario. I have my page, the home page. This home page, we have footer, we have header, and we have the maybe the body. The header or the navbar is one component, and then the footer is another component, and then the body maybe is another component. So if we combine the three components, which are the navbar and maybe the footer and the body, to be one, then we make our page. This is where the container component comes from. Actually, this is a cool example of a container component. We are summing up some presentational components. So what is container component? As you can see in my slide, I've written container component provide data. How things work. How does our state works? How is data being provided to other people or other components? So it is a stateful kind of components and you can manage your state here. Also, it does not include as many HTML tags as you think, but it contains divs which wraps children component. Actually, we will be looking at this in a practical example later in this video. What do I uh, what am I meaning by it does not include HTML tags majorly except the divs for wrapping children component? Let's say we import our navbar, we import our footer, and we import our body to our container component, which is main. So most components are renders one single item, or let's say a tag. So if you have three of those presentational component which make your one container component, so you wrap them in div. But let's say your container components only has one uh, one one presentational component, so there is no need of wrapping it in divs. Okay, now let's get started with coding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this and then go to getting started. So here actually so open my code and then let me do some expansion here. So hope that is clear. So earlier we talked about the presentational components where we say there's no need of managing state. But what do we want to create today? We want to create, let me create a file called container component.js. So we have said that container component houses our presentational component. So let me create, because let me import React from React, and then let me make a class. So we will be creating a class called container component, which for this case extends the React, the component. um, uh, there's something called component, which I will be speaking about it later in another video in React. Some of the tools, some of the things you need to know about React. So for this case, I just want us to get understanding of I want us to get understanding of what do we mean by container component, what do we mean by container or presentational. So for all the React methods, we have render and then what we are going to return. So for this case, I just want to import our presentational component, which is, let's say, symbol. We had called it maybe symbol component from. All right. So what are we going to do? I am going to pass this to like return this. This is what I meant by it doesn't have a lot of HTML tags. What do we have? Like it prints out, it takes out maybe this symbol component from uh, from from the child symbol component, and then this is where we manipulate our state. This is where we pass now our state. We pass our state to props, and then the child component receives data as props. I hope we are getting each other closer. So what do I want to do? To illustrate the method of or the functionality for a container component, we can have a constructor which actually takes props. So there is a method called super for this case, and probably I just want you people to go and research about the use of constructor and the use of super. But later on, I will be creating more videos on JavaScript where I will be explaining the uses of terms like this, the uses of super, constructor. So this kind explaining things of even OOP. So for this case, I will be taking this as a header and I will be taking this as a paragraph. So let's say header, and then this is data, and then maybe I said paragraph. Okay. So what do I want to do here? As you can see, we have said this provides data, how things work. They contain the state. And then we actually said about presentational is that it presents the data and it is a stateless or majorly child of a component. So what are we doing here? What we are going to do here is to make sure that the state where we have header and paragraph, we pass them to our child component, which is a presentational component or functional component. Other people call functional component mostly because you don't manipulate the state. So I will take this message and copy the message here, and then I will take this paragraph, and then I'm going to copy this message here. So what are we going to do? So actually I will have, let's say, something called the header for this case, and then have another item called the paragraph here. What do I want to do here? I just want um, to pass our data in our state to our presentational component. So for this case, I'm going to do something called the destructuring, or getting items from this dot state. So this is header. I have an header, and then I have a paragraph. So in JavaScript, it's very dynamic. Rather than me creating here this dot state dot header, I just go ahead and destructure up there, so that I will pass here as header and pass here as paragraph. So this is actually destructuring. But what I mean here is, it's like taking this and passing it in this form. It's the same thing. You can read more on that. It's about the ES6 syntax, which is very fantastic, and I like it so much. So after we have passed our state to our props, what are we doing here? What I want us to do is take the props here. We can call anything, let's say props. So for this case, or for the first case of our props, we will take props dot, was it header or what? Yeah, header. And then the second one is paragraph. So that's the second part is, sorry, paragraph. So what does this imply? This implies that now, as we are passing to our child component the data so that we present, um okay, let me, I hope my server is running. I don't know. Let me start my server to make sure. Okay, so we are not getting any data. So what does that mean? Our container component is what we are going to pass in our hub.jxx. So what we have actually passed here is, we will have to pass this container, or the main, as we talked about the example of the main page. This is where now we pass this container. So when we refresh, what do I expect? I expect this data to be passed. So this is actually a recap of uh, container components and presentational components. So what did I do? Earlier, we actually add the data that was presented by this simple component to be passed to our hub.jsx, and then this information gets printed. But now we want our child component, which is a simple component, to communicate with our container component. So what does that mean? That means that we use our container components, we render it in our hub.jsx file here, or our main page, and then we import our child component, which is very reusable. So you need to know that this one can be reusable. For instance, let's say now I want to make another, like this header paragraph. I want you to notice that there will be an error. There is an error. Why do we have an error? As I explained in this start part, is that we do not include HTML except the divs for wrapping children component. So this is our children component. What do we need to do? We need to wrap them in a div. And then So when we refresh, we don't have an error and we get printed two messages. So this was more about talking about container components, which passes props or which passes our state to props to our children, and then they communicate. So in the next video, I'm going to speak a little bit about props and state, and then um, enumerate on how we can use, although I have explained most of the things how state and props works, but we can dig deeper on them. We will also look on, we will also clarify some things about container components and the presentational components. Maybe they are, what do they have in common? When can I use container component? When can I use presentational component? So if you have watched this video up to the end, I want just to thank you for that. Keep watching, more videos coming. So if you have any question, any query, any concern, any comments, please leave it below. Like my video, share, subscribe. See you in the next video.